I tried to stand up, but obviously my leg wouldn't support me, and tried it twice, and then I could just see it flopping. And probably not, my ankle wasn't going in the right direction.
And what's the immediate thought that goes through your mind?
Oh, like the immediate thing was shock.
Yeah.
I just, like, it wasn't pain, it was shock. I let out 2 screams at what I'd seen, and then I just laid there until the ambulance came.
Cora, thank you for joining us today. I'm looking forward to talking to you about your life, your career, and specifically what keeps you going and what drives you.
He wears the black trunks with red trim. His professional record, 34 victories with 2 defeats, 24 wins by way of knockout. Hailing from Limerick, Ireland, introducing Andy Lee.
Quadruple leg break, most people don't come, no, like,
yeah,
how?
It can be career ending, but like it can be probably a 12-month injury, but.
Yeah, but for most people it's the end.
Yeah,
it's the
well,
end.
it probably can be, yeah.
Did it ever cross your mind?
No.
You never thought about that?
No, not with the surgery. Like, I was lucky. If I was in Australia, I think if I was in Ireland, and no disrespect to anyone in Ireland, but you just wouldn't get the same support and probably same level of medical care that you get when you're over there. Like, the minute I broke it, it was like onto the club to see who's the best surgeon to do it, what hospital to go and do it, and then.
Because you waited a while.
Yeah, I stayed. I was meant to be home.
Yeah, but you waited a while to get the right surgeon as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So the club, I wasn't on the phone, but everyone else was on the phone trying. You know, I didn't have my surgery till the Monday. It happened on a Saturday, and just support after that. Like, I was within the club probably 5 days afterwards. You know, and then put a plan together with physio, strength conditioning coach. And like 2 weeks afterwards, I was cycling on a stationary bike.
I know, but like you're breezing over an awful lot of. So like, first of all, obviously you're playing a game, and you stayed back in Australia just to get some experience in the Australian rules.
Yeah, so the season had finished and I had signed for the next season. So I said I'd stay over and play, because I only had played 14, 15 games of AFL at this stage. That I'd stay over and play a few club games and just get to know the game better for 2 months. So I stayed on, and in my second club game over there, so I was being tackled by someone and my foot just got kind of caught in the ground and I couldn't move it, and
I read that you stood up.
Yeah, I tried to stand up, but obviously my leg wouldn't support me, and tried it twice, and then I could just see it flopping. And probably not, my ankle wasn't going in the right direction.
And what's the immediate thought that goes through your mind?
Oh, like the immediate thing was shock.
Yeah.
It wasn't pain, it was shock. I let out 2 screams at what I'd seen, and then I just laid there until the ambulance came. Obviously the pain was probably getting a little bit stronger before, like they were about 20 minutes, so that 20 minutes the pain was probably getting a lot worse when they came on.
Did you look at your leg?
Twice I looked at it and that was it.
Yeah.
You know, thankfully no bone came out through my skin. It was very close to, but I knew straight away it wasn't good. So yeah, I didn't realise to the level of, until I had the X-ray, I thought it was a leg break, that was it. I didn't realise that I had 4 breaks, so that was a shock when the doctor came out and said, you know, you've broken your leg in 4 places or 3 places in your ankle. And then, that was kind of, I had to have emergency surgery then, because obviously it wasn't in the right direction and blood and stuff wasn't flowing through. So they brought me down just to straighten the leg initially. And then when they done that, they casted it on a Saturday and the surgery on a Monday. But during that night, the Saturday night, the cast, the pressure in the leg was too much. They had to cut the cast. Yeah, it was swelling. So the pain was immense that Saturday night. So the surgeon had to come late that Saturday night just to cut the cast up the middle to release the pressure. So then I had surgery and got a rod which goes from my ankle up into my knee, and 5 or 6 screws in it as well. So that's still in there, that'll stay in there. And then recovery started once I left the hospital. As I said, the first 2 weeks I was on crutches.
Okay,
so couldn't do much.
From the Saturday to the Monday even, at any point in your mind do you think this could be it?
Yeah, to a point. I suppose that's when the phone hits in and Google, and that's the first thing you're probably thinking of, quadruple leg break, and you're seeing, has anyone happened to before? And when you go on there, that's probably not the best thing.
Yeah.
No, but I don't think it crossed your mind. No, I just thought it'd take longer. I thught'd
And what about even like forget about your career, like concerns about yourself being able, like?
No, I was never too concerned about that. It was probably a few weeks down the line when I had to like learn how to walk again, and that was that was a struggle to learn, and I mean to learn how to walk properly without a limp, which I had for a while. That was a frustrating thing, and learning how to more so come downstairs than upstairs, that again took me a while, and I was getting very frustrated. That's when I maybe was worried a bit that I'd be have a limp walking, but that obviously went, and then I.
Is it frustrating because you obviously know how to do it, but your body's not doing it?
Yeah, and I'm being asked to do stuff like through my rehab, simple things like hopping on one leg, and I can't do it, or skipping, and I can't do it, and the more I try, the more frustrated I'm getting.
The brain is telling,
it's telling
the
me
body,
to do it. So obviously it's a mental battle, and I think it was week 7.5, we started to go on a treadmill called the Alter G. So it's a weightless treadmill. You put whatever weight you want. So I was at probably about 50% body weight, and we tried to do a little run, and my leg reacted really badly to that. So I had to go back on crutches for about 4 or 5 days after that happening, and that was all to do because of my leg. I had nerve damage to my big toe, so I didn't have movement to my big toe.
This is like you're just breezing over this. It's like I think it's amazing that you are, and
but it's true. You just go with the process. Like my big toe is only probably back 90% working now, but at the time it didn't work for a long time, and it's amazing how important your big toe is for walking and running and stuff like that. So. That was probably the only major mental battle I had, was between week 7 and week 8, where I had to go back on crutches again, and I couldn't move from the apartment, and I had serious pain again.
Yeah.
That was a huge struggle. That's when one stage I wanted to go home and I didn't want to be in Australia. But again, that week went and I was fine again.
And what are you how are you getting yourself through those days?
Probably teammates, friends, and just.
You have a brother in Australia?
My brother had gone actually home at that stage. He moved home that June, so this was probably about 2 weeks after he moved home for good. He was nearly 11 years there. Him and his wife and 2 boys moved home, but I had good friends in that around. I think I'm mentally strong enough to get through it. Once I had people like my physio, my strength conditioning coach, that would come and check it, and they're like, no, you haven't done any extra damage, it's fine, it's just something reacted, you'll be fine, in a few days you need to rest. So once I had someone telling me it was okay, I think that helped me through. But yeah, you'll have...
You credit the conditioning coach and physio hugely.
For the whole time, from week 2, from straight away, but when I sat in the stationary bike for 2 minutes after 14 days, they put a plan in place, and I just followed that plan to the letter of the law. Yeah, I probably did extra, as in I was allowed to do as much as I could on the bike. Eventually, that was my my way of keeping fit. Yeah, I'd be doing extra sessions, but everything else I just followed what they told me to do. They didn't, it wasn't anything else. Yeah, it was my hard work, but it was their guidance right through it, and their support, both mentally and physically. They knew when I was having a bad day to not push me, or when I was having a good day to push me.
And up to that point, how long? This was still your first season in Australia. So did you have that kind of relationship with them before this, or? No,
so I had done 2 seasons in Australia. I just finished my 2nd season. Probably not as strong as a relationship. The relationship probably grew, especially certainly with my strength conditioning coach, because she's very straight down the line. Like, you put in the work, she's happy, but if you're in any way don't put in the work, she's very straight down the line. Everything is black and white is white. So I think she kind of had an idea who I was, but it probably took her, after the first 2 or 3 weeks, she's seen how much effort I was putting in. To her, I became like a mini project in her job, where she was researching, because she hadn't any, she works with the AFL boys over there and netballers. So she's working with a lot, probably 70 or 80 athletes, but she'd never come across an injury. She'd done a lot of ACLs and stuff with athletes. This was like a pet project to her within her role within the club, and she was obviously credited at the end for the amazing work that she put in.
I'm sure she has that kind of personality, being very straight, and she could see the effort you were putting in and how serious you were then.
Yeah, exactly. So the more effort I was putting in, the more work she was giving, helping me with. So she went beyond and above her role. To help me, and as did my physio, but that's just because I probably, because of my personality, and they could see that, okay, if there's one person that's going to get back from this, she is. So.
And how would you think that type of level of support would compare to had you been injured in Ireland?
I think it's difficult to say, but I just can't imagine if that happened for me playing with Mayo or with my club Carnacon, that we'd have that resources there to say, oh, we're going to pick a surgeon for you, and like I'd some stage have to go back to work. You know, I wouldn't have access to a full-time if I had access to a full-time strength conditioning and physio, this would all have to come out of my pocket. You know, I wasn't paying for any of this in Australia. So financially it would have been a burden on me if I was here in Ireland. And just access, we don't, here in Ireland we don't have, unless maybe I've been in the facility in Limerick for Munster Rugby. We don't have access to most of the stuff in one building. Like I could just go into the club 7 days a week.
You think that, and just not to get into it too much, but like if you were a male GAA player in Ireland, that injury, would you think you'd have a greater support?
Yeah, certainly, 100%. And I've seen it with my county team or county or he's playing Tom Parsons that plays for Mayo, who had a really bad knee injury playing for Mayo probably a year and a half, 2 years ago, and the support that Tom would have got. Because again, his was probably a career-threatening injury. He was lucky to come back for it, and the support he got from the Mayo County Board and the GAA community was huge. But I just don't think if you're a female, you'd have got a certain level of support. You just wouldn't have got the same access. I wouldn't have had a full-time strength conditioning coach, and I wouldn't certainly have access to the facilities that I had over in Australia, whether that was like Alter G treadmills or you know, everything is just in one building, swimming pools, everything was there. While you'll have them in Mayo, you're going and paying for them all yourself, and one is in one area and one is here. I'd be driving maybe to Galway for access to something where everything was just there. I went in whenever I wanted to go in.
And you said before we came on air that now that since you've had the injury and you've had to go through all the physio and the rehabilitation and learning to walk and to play and to function again, that you're actually in better shape from that.
Yeah, exactly, because you get time, I suppose, number one, to rest your body, but also you have to, mechanically, I had to learn how to walk properly again. It wasn't like, oh, it'll just come back to you. It doesn't, unfortunately, it doesn't come back to you. And then you have to go through the whole cycle of learning how to jog and then learning how to sprint. So, like for me, learning how to hop, learning how to skip, doing the basic things that you take for granted, learning how to come up the stairs, learning how to go down the stairs. Like they were things that took me, especially learning how to hop on one leg and learning how to come down the stairs and walking were probably the three hardest things that, you know, my levels of frustration at the time were so high because I couldn't do it. So things that you take for granted that you don't even think of on a daily basis, that now I do, because when I'm walking down the stairs I'll never take it for granted again, but you know, you do on a general basis.
And are there are there any doubts in your mind about your leg?
No, not at all. It doesn't, you know.
You don't have those second thoughts?
No, I've since I've come back, obviously initially when you went back into contact training and all that, but again, that was very well done. You know, it was all staged, and you know, I went into training. I didn't go into contact first, and then when I went back to contact, it was minimal level. I was taught, you know, the actual way I injured my leg was in a tackle. So, you know, I went stage by stage on my own with my strength and conditioning coach of how to tackle.
Who's tackling you?
Yeah, so she tackled me, or learning how to fall again on the ground. Simple things, because obviously my tackle was, as I was falling, my leg was breaking. So just simple things like that. And then, you know, I'd eventually go into contact, and you know, they'd have someone within the team, their day was to, you know, target me and hit me, even though I wouldn't know that, but they were making sure every training session that I was getting a certain level of contact, but it was in a safe environment, which, you know, obviously then you come back to your first game and yeah, you're nervous, but once that's out of the way in the first 10 minutes, it was fine again. I never, like, since I went back and played my first game, I haven't ever thought about my leg in any stage of a match or in a training session.
And like, you were 37, like, not to you on it, but you were 37 at that stage, so there would have been people who thought that's Lee Meets Cora Staunton.
Oh, I'd say the majority of the people.
Yeah.
And it was a story, I was being asked, like, from a psychological point of view, like, you know, had you any doubts and what motivated you maybe to get back? And And I always remembered 5 days after I had the operation, had to go to the club to see our doctor just to check my stitches in my wound to see was it clean and get it changed. And I was standing in the club at the time waiting to see the doctor, and this guy, we won't name who he was, but was high up in the club in the men's department, came out to talk to me and see how my leg was. And he made a comment that day to me, "Oh, we don't think you'll ever get back." And I just, at that time I was in a level of pain. This was 5 days after the operation. I just wanted to see the doctor and get home again. I was still, on a lot of medication.
He was a nice chap, wasn't he?
Yeah, and I always remember that comment. Anytime I was training, or I'd see him in the club, which you'd see him a lot, or he was the guy when you've probably done an hour of cross training and you say to yourself, I'll do an extra 5 or 10 minutes, that you'll do it, because I just needed someone to give me that extra motivation.
But yeah, like I've read that about you as well, that and I've heard you speak about it, like, do you feel like, I don't know how to phrase it, but like people doubting you, you use that as that's a huge motivating factor for you.
Yeah, exactly. And some people mightn't even doubt it.
Throughout your career, not just this.
Completely. Yeah. And people mightn't even doubt you, but it might be the smallest thing that you'll say to. It was another story with my coach. He was dropping me home from the club one day, obviously because I wasn't driving at this stage. And I said, something about the surgeon. I said, oh, he was excellent, because I thought he was excellent in any of my dealings with him, with my leg. This is probably 2.5 weeks after the operation. He goes, oh, we'll see how good he is in October, as in when the season starts again, whether you get back. And I took that as, oh, he was doubting the surgeon and doubting me. So that was, again, it was just a little nugget of extra motivation that you need. And I've said it to him since, and he didn't mean it in that way.
Do you recognise that? Do you recognise that though? Like, I would think that someone who's achieved all that you have achieved, and have the standard in your sports, and that you don't have anything to me, you don't have anything to prove. Well, why do you think you need that to have that doubt? Just do you think? Like if someone said something about me early in my career, it would have drove me on. But like later on, I was like, I know how good I am. I can do it. It's grand,
Yeah, I think it's because obviously I'm in a new environment over there. I'm new. I think if maybe it was at home here in Mayo and it was people doubting you, I'd probably say, I have had a distinguished career there. But I suppose I'm new to the sport, and when I went over, I'm 3 years now, I'm going into my 4th year. I went back to the bottom of the ladder. I might have gone from being one of the top GAA players here, but we've 31 on our panel. I was certainly number 31, as in ability and standard and all that. So, it's a whole new chapter. It's a different sport. So, I'm still only trying to build my career over there. I was at the time. So, when you have that, they didn't fully know me, and they'd say that to me, strength and conditioning coach, my coach, players, anyone involved in the club. It's probably they didn't see how driven I was until my injury came.
Yeah.
Because around training I'd be quite shy and wouldn't say too much. But when they seen, they had an idea what I was like. But I think when they seen me through my probably 6-9 months of rehab, then they were like, oh, this one is just a different level.
Well, it's amazing that. Yeah, now they've asked you back.
Yeah.
And you've also been brought into the leadership group.
Yeah.
Which is a huge,
Yeah,
it's validation.
Exactly, yeah. And I think that period of, because normally I go over and play a season over there, spend 6 months, and then I'm home and I play a season here. So they don't see you for the full time. They don't see the work that you're putting in to keep yourself fit or to keep yourself in shape for the next season. So I think because I spent obviously a period of 11 months over there, they seen probably the true me, if that's.
So going into your 4th year, you're part of the leadership group now, and you feel you have that kind of autonomy or authority to influence the team, and what does it entail? And do you feel like you'll be comfortable doing it?
Yeah, I suppose the main thing in the leadership group over there, it's very big over there, leadership, way more than it ever in any sport I've played in Ireland. In both the men's and women's space, it's a big thing. They all have their leadership groups, and it's voted on every year, and they're really important to them. But I suppose the main role is probably a two-pronged thing. Would be that you're a support for the rest of your teammates, and you're a voice and an ear for them to come if they've any problems and listen. But also then you're a link between the coach and staff. and the girls themselves and the panel of players. So that's your probably biggest role, that you're there, that you can challenge the coach and the coaching staff. You can have hard conversations, but you're also there as a support to a lot of the girls. I nearly see it as a mentoring role. We've a lot of young girls from right across Australia. Not many of them are from Sydney or New South Wales. They're coming from, WA, Western Australia. They're coming from Southern Australia. So they could be 19, 20, 21. So they're moving. They're moving from home, first time moving home and moving across the country, and it's probably a little bit unsettling for them. So yeah, you're more so there as a mentor towards them to help them build their career as footballers, but more importantly as people, and in time empower any wisdom that you have on them, and in time that you hope in could be 2, could be 5 years time that they'll then eventually be in a leadership group.
Was it a big culture change? Like it is huge, I guess, from Mayo to Sydney, but going into a team, people you didn't know, they don't not knowing you, your reputation and all that you've done in Ireland is, they don't really, they might have heard of it, but they wouldn't have known you.
They had no idea who I was. I suppose when it announced when I was coming over, they obviously took to the internet and, had a good look on Google who you are. But yeah, it was a huge cultural change for me because I haven't ever been new, not ever, but it's been such a long time since I've been a newbie in a team, because I've been playing with Mayo for so long. I've been playing with Carnacon and any other teams that I've been involved in. I always knew a good number, of people, whether it was joining rugby or soccer. I still knew a number of people, and I suppose it was all within Mayo, and you're obviously held to a certain level of esteem, so people know you. But when you go over there, number one, you're the only non-Aussie. So number one, your accent is a huge part to play. So a lot of the time they didn't understand me, so I had to slow down my speaking, and they didn't just lingo and words that we'd used, they'd have no idea. So that was probably a barrier. Number two, as I said, I'm probably coming from the top of my own sport here to the bottom of the ladder and trying to pick up a whole new game. And I was late the first season going over because we had won the All-Ireland with Carnacon, so we won that on a Sunday and I flew on a Tuesday. So I'd missed the first 3 weeks, nearly a month of pre-season, so that didn't help. They'd all got to know each other at that stage. So yeah, and I'm off the field, I'm quite, as I said, I'm reserved and quite shy. I wouldn't be like, the social party animal. I'd be just quite reserved. When I'm here in Ireland or in my own circle, I stick to the same bunch of friends and trust the same 5, 6, 7 people that have been around me for a long time. So that was all quite new, and I struggled for the first month. I was lucky at the time, my brother and his wife and kids lived there, so I had them as a support outside of the club. So it probably took me about 6 weeks before I said anything when I went over there. And I had to work my way up in the group, but they had to see who I was. Was I just someone that was coming over because of my reputation, or was I had to put in the hard work? It's like any sport. When you come into any team, you just have to buy your time and work hard. And if they see that you're a hard worker and you're training as hard as they are and putting in as much effort, then eventually they'll see that you're there.
What do you hope to achieve this year with the Giants?
Yeah, I suppose obviously every year is a decision to go back. I suppose
and what was the what was it? Well, there was a desire to go back. You did want to go back. Yeah, there's a
desire. I suppose obviously the way the things are with the world at the moment, it's probably a little bit more difficult. The season kind of ended, very. It
was just cancelled, wasn't it?
It was just cancelled because of COVID. So, yeah, I just think there's a group of girls there. Obviously, your ideal thing is to win a premiership, which is the equivalent of an All-Ireland, but there's a very good group of young talented girls that are coming through that need a lot of support and a lot of mentoring. So ideally, number one is you want to win a premiership. Number two is that you want to leave the club in a good place, that if it's not going to happen next year, it'll happen in the very near future. Because I suppose it's like your own club where you're from. I have a passion and a love for them now, and even though I'm only there 3 years, I feel like I've been there a lifetime with them. So I'm very passionate about that they'll do well, whether it's in the men's space or in the netball space or in our own space.
Could you potentially see yourself staying there and working as a coach?
Yeah, it'd be something certainly that I'd be interested in down the line. I never say no to anything. You know, the only thing that probably draws me back home, obviously, is family. But I have a huge loyalty to my own club here. You know, even when I go back to my injury and.
I heard that you felt guilty that you went.
Yeah, I felt hugely guilty, and obviously I tried to come back and play some of the season. You know, towards the end of the year for a club because of, you know, that guilt that's probably attached to it. So. Yeah, that's probably the only thing that'll ever, you know, the family and the club trying to draw you back, you know, home. So yeah, but I never say never to do some certainly coaching or something out there.
And you've just to go like your club, you feel a duty to the club.
Yeah,
you don't feel you've done your job there more than enough.
There's never any pressure put on you, but I suppose I wouldn't be in the position I am today. I wouldn't be in Australia. I wouldn't have, you know, played so long with me or whatever my role is as a sports person. Only for them, you know, they're the ones that got me started and have supported me through, you know, certain life events that has been very tough and supported me through the good and bad times. And eventually, you know, when I'm finished playing sport, they're my friends. They're the ones I'll see all the time, and you know, they're the ones that you'll spend the rest of your life being friendly with. That's where you're from. That's, you know, that's where I'm living. That's the community where you're in now.
And do you see the finish line inside? You just said the finish spot. Did you have any idea?
I wished I did, but no, not at the moment. I've always said to myself since I was probably, I'd say, I think it was around the time I lost my mother, it was 16, 17. I think it was around that time. You know, once my body is in physically enough shape to keep going, and once I'm enjoying it, I'll keep going. I'm certainly enjoying it. My body's holding up just about at the moment, so you know, I'll see how the body is over the next 6 months. You know, I'll try and certainly play with club as long as I can. But no, I try. Not that I don't think about the end in sight, but I just kind of, you know, I'm worried about club championship at the moment and how we'll do, and then I'll worry about Australia.
Is it hard to separate you as a person to you as a footballer? Do you think, like, because when you eventually do want to finish up playing, who are you then, and what do you do? Yeah,
certainly. I suppose I've been quite good at separating, you know, because I probably in my work and in my workspace, that's always the thing I wanted. I wanted to be, you know, Cora the footballer, but I wanted to be just Cora who has a job and works 9 to 5 Monday to Friday, and I think the job that I went into working in the traveller community, that gave me that.
You're a liaison officer for the HSE.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So working with that community, that certainly, when I went in there, I probably struggled to be just Cora the footballer and Cora that has a job. But when I certainly went in there, it was like a whole new lease. That you know, that was my job, and I did that, and I'd nothing. You know, they weren't too interested in me and my sporting career, and I always felt that gave me a place away from sport. So I think. And that's when you're lucky, when you're playing professional sport and you look at certainly the men's side of AFL over there, their identity, because that's their full-time job, is within sport, and there's probably a struggle when you come out of professional sport to have your identity, I suppose. When you're not in it, especially in the GAA, when you're in an amateur sport, you still work Monday to Friday 9 to 5, and you still have your job, and people know you as just as a work colleague or whatever you're employed as.
Yeah. It's difficult to separate the two.
Yeah, and at times,
especially when you've had good success or you don't have success.
At times earlier on, when I'm in work and in jobs, you know, that'd be the first thing they'd want to come to you and just be talking about a match or something. I was like, no, I'm here at work. I'm not here in a sporting capacity. That could be the difficult thing. And I'm quite good at saying, no, I'm here at work now. I'm here to do a job. I'm not here to talk about sport. Yeah. But that's not to say when it's all over that I won't get involved. Whether it's in coaching, you know, I'm doing some media work with RT as well, so I'll certainly stay involved in that capacity.
Manage the Mayo football team, the men's team.
I don't know about that. God, they've had enough.
Break the curse.
Yeah, if I could be guaranteed to win an All Ireland with them, yeah, I'd certainly go and manage them, because you'd be certainly knighthooded or sainthooded for the rest of your life if you could bring back Sam back west.
I still don't think like we got to the core of what I really want to know is like what actually what drives you, because you're incredibly driven. But like if you could what would you say to that answer? What answer would you give me to that question if I said what drives you to keep going and to keep being successful at
Yeah, it's probably hard. Like I think it all comes from my upbringing and my childhood. That's where, and it's difficult to answer, but I do think it comes. And I suppose I've spoken about it before. Mentally, I think it comes from watching my mother go through her cancer battle. You know, I was probably at the age of between 13 and 16 when she was sick, and then probably between, you know, the age of 14 and a half to 16 when she was really sick. So I think her determination through her cancer battle, and she tried to never let her get to her, even though obviously in the end, you know, she passed away. But I think it was her determination and her drive. I have a lot of her traits and characteristics in me. I'm quite stubborn, and I think I take a lot from that. So it's crazy, your formative years at that age, what you see. It must
have been obviously. It was devastating at a time, that time in your life especially.
Yeah, exactly. I think that was probably the period of my life that I think that I watched her, and I think that's where that drive comes from. And as I said, I take a lot of her traits, and you know, I have a lot of similarities to her. So I think that's where it comes from.
It's interesting. Like, even within this series of interviews that I've done, I've spoken to people who are all generally successful in their own fields, but they all credit the tough times they've had. You know, so I was just thinking, like, you know, there's the upside of adversity. You know, that it's hard, but like, do you think you'd be as successful now if
I don't.
Terrible, like, it's not.
No, I definitely don't, and I do.
You hadn't had those hard times.
Yeah, there's been a few things throughout my career, throughout my life. Obviously losing my mom, and then I lost a very good friend that was a club mate of mine, and she was 18, probably 4 or 5 years after Mom died. In a car crash. So I think it's them, and there's been other obviously things going on in life that you have had. I think it's them. You know, it's either you go into a hole and crumble, or you stand up tall and keep going. So I think and I think that's in any young person that's grown up. You know, some people that have a lot more, as I call them, you know, bumps in the road, and you can either just, you know, decide to say I have enough, or I keep going. I think they make you more determined.
Yeah, it's the way of dealing with. Is it like were you playing and driving on? Was that your way of dealing with that grief?
Yeah, I think initially when it happened originally, you know, Mom passed away, I was very angry.
How could you react?
Yeah, I would, like, looking back, and again, it was only till, you know, I sat down and talked about it when I wrote my book that I actually, you know, this was my thinking on it. But I was very angry. I remember for the first while after it, I was very angry at sport because I'd been away from home for a long, you know, every evening playing a lot of sport at that age. And then when I went back, I probably stopped playing sport for a couple of months. When I went back playing, it was certainly my way of dealing with it. You know, because I had that level of anger in me, but I also needed that level of support. So I had a whole team of 30 girls.
Distraction and
it was a huge distraction, but it wasn't just a huge distraction for me, because of when my mom died, for the next, I think, 5 years, we won 4 out of 5 All-Ireland. It was a huge distraction for my family, my father, my brothers and sisters. It was like we were on this roller coaster for 5 years with Mayo football. So that was certainly, you know, and they'll talk about, that was certainly what helped them not get over it, because you never get over things like that. It helped them cope what was going on, because we're all very young. So yeah, I do credit sport, you know, helping me to deal with and cope with, you know, difficult times in life.
Yeah. Cora, thank you very much. Very interesting. I think we could talk here forever.
No,
so thank you very much.
Me.